Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and this is day 6 of a build a day until they announce DLC. That's right, we're doing a build every single day until they announce DLC, so definitely hop on board and hit that subscribe button if you want to check out tons of awesome builds that are going to come up on this channel. I've been making a list, more or less, of things that I wanted to do for a long time, and we're going to keep doing builds until they announce DLC. We're going to see how long we can go with this, and for this one, it's the Dragonscale Blade that we'll be focusing on with our backup weapon of the Rivers of Blood. They have a combination move set, and one can proc Frost and the other one can on-proc it with Fire while doing a little bit of bleed. Interestingly enough, this was one that I had really a good time with. I mean, honestly, this was a very, very fun build to use. Why? Because Ice Lightning Sword is a lot of fun. So my idea behind this ended up being I wanted to be able to proc Frost with it and on-proc. So I was looking through what to use. So I looked through the katanas, and instead of going with a fire katana and having more of like a quality build where we're going to do strength for the fire part, you can go with flame art, faith, and then go back and do dex. I decided to go with arcane and dexterity because that would give us a lot of damage with the Dragonscale Blade, which is mainly just dexterity, and then also getting some damage and the fire damage to on-proc the Frost, along with the bleed that's on the Rivers of Blood, and give it a very good combination move set that they have and use that to our advantage. And as I mentioned, I think I mentioned this already, we're building up consecutive hits, and as we build up the consecutive damage, which is generic damage, Ice Lightning Sword is going to get buffed a lot throughout the fight, so that later when you hit it, you're going to be hitting for thousands of damage. So when you use Ice Lightning Sword, what happens is you get a lightning boost to the weapon. You get flat lightning damage that's on it, along with, I believe, 80 flat frost. So that's pretty cool. It's going to help us a lot between the lightning damage and the fact that we're getting frost off of it. It also buffs the weapon with that same frost and lightning damage. I think it's 40 seconds after the initial contact hit, which can be boosted by the Shard of Alexander and does decent damage. Now, when it comes to dragons, it's really just okay. You think because it's lightning and it does additional damage to dragons, it'd be better, but unfortunately, it's slash damage, and they're incredibly resistant to slash, so it's pretty much neutral against dragons rather than getting a bonus from them, so just be aware of that. Even so, though, it does fine against them. There's no issues there. It's just not going to be something as ridiculous as Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, or something crazy of that nature that does a lot of lightning damage that's not nearly as resisted, because slash damage from dragons is heavily resisted. So as far as this journey, I think we're at journey 4 here. This character is over level 150 at level 190, but we'll go over stats and try to explain it for a 150 build as well, because it most likely can be done at 150. As far as this character, I believe, like I said, it's journey 4-ish. Not 100% sure. I haven't played on this one in like a month, simply because of the fact that it's an odd level at 190. I don't know why. I was just leveling it up for a while, and then I decided at some point to stop leveling it up. It kind of helped with this build, though, in the end, though, because we wanted to get as much damage as we can out of it. And for people playing just PvE, they're going to continue leveling up anyway, and you can go for really high dex to get the maximum amount of damage out of the Dragonscale Blade, and then obviously a fairly decent amount of Arcane and Vigor as well. But we'll go over stats a little bit later, and as you can see there, that tree avatar didn't stand much of a chance. Now, for NPC invaders, it's really just okay. Keep in mind that even though I had decent poise with this armor set, this is the Knight's Calvary set, even so, you can be interrupted with this Ash of War very easy. It's very easy for pretty much anybody to interrupt this Ash of War, which makes it a little bit more difficult. It does do good damage when it hits. Obviously, it does the frost and everything too, and the combination moveset between the two is fantastic. But as far as actually using the Ash of War on NPC invaders, and it may be an issue in PvP as well, I noticed not very good hyper armor with this weapon. As you pull up the sword to slam it down, I feel like a dagger could hit you, and even if you had 50 or more poise, 50 to 100, you'd still get knocked down. So there is a little bit of an issue there. Even with that said, it's still an awesome weapon to use, though, if you can land it right at the right times. And the buff on the weapon that you get afterwards is really what's worth it, because that's what combines well with the Rivers of Blood. And goodbye, Margit. That was very, very easy. As you can see, it was fantastic damage there, especially at the end. After you build up those consecutive attacks, you can do a ton of damage. So for buffs, we're drinking our tear, and then we're going to use Golden Vow. We're going to use Howl Shabriri for this one because it'll generically boost the weapon art, since the weapon art is lightning damage. That'll boost it by 25%, and then we're going to slam down and use the sword for an awesome Ash of War. So for this awesome setup, we have the Dragonscale Blade plus 10, the Rivers of Blood plus 10, any seal will do. We have the Knight's Calvary set, which is a really cool looking set, Rotten Wing Sword Insignia, Ritual Sword Talisman, Millicent's Prosthesis, Shard of Alexander, and then we have the consecutive attack, the Thorny tier, as well as either the Stamina or Defense tier. And if you need Faith for buffs, you can also throw in the Faith tier as the second one, because that one's really open to you. So for stats, if you want to get this down to 150, the main thing is you're going to want 50 Vigor. You're going to generally, though, want probably 45 Dexterity. You'll get to 50 with Millicent's Prosthesis. And then as far as your Arcane goes, 40's fine for that, and then everything else is up to you whether you want to do buffs or whatnot. And then if you, in your second tier, you use the Faith tier, you can actually save 10 levels. If you want to do Howl Shabriri, you only need 23 Faith instead. So for mob control, this is actually just decent. It's not really fantastic because, again, it doesn't have a ton of hyper armor. It does do a fairly good amount of damage, but if you're getting overwhelmed or you have like a lot or overrun, there's a whole bunch of, regular enemies on your screen and whatnot, there's a lot of better Ashes of War in the game that'll completely destroy them. Ice Lightning Sword probably doesn't fall into that category, but can it be used to destroy mobs, and can you do decent with it? Absolutely, but in my opinion, it's better against bosses than it is for mob control, simply for the fact that there isn't a ton of hyper armor, and the fact that Ice Lightning Sword doesn't have a wide range where it hits. It's not a huge, massive range where it hits. There's not a lot of leeway there. You generally have to be on top of the target, and it doesn't have a lot of knockback or anything like that either. This is definitely a fun weapon, though. If you've been following this video to this point, you can probably picture it and definitely try this build because it is a fun one to use. If you're looking for a little bit of a challenge, something that's not super overpowered, but actually functionally works together, and a way to boost Ice Lightning Sword with the consecutive attack boost, and then using Ice Lightning Sword at the end of the fight, which gives you a lot more damage. I mean, I've hit as much as between, I think, 3,000 and 5,000 or so with it after all those consecutive stuff builds up. You can definitely do a lot of damage with it. You can take advantage of a very, very cool and fun weapon art, and it goes well with the Rivers of Blood, which is obviously also a very fun weapon to use. They have a very good combination moveset and kind of go hand in hand with the Fire, Bleed, and Frost. So keep in mind that those consecutive attack talismans and boosts for anything that you're using, they're all generic boosts. So as you build them up and you meet the threshold of finalizing kind of all of that damage boost, you can then use any Ash of War or pretty much anything in general if you're quick enough with it and get a massive generic damage boost to it on top of your normal buffs. So definitely keep that in mind. And that is day 6 of our build a day until they announce DLC. If you love overpowered PvE builds, definitely check out all the builds that are on my channel. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you guys there. And be sure to sub.